Worthless parasites like you with no career and community college education don't belong under this roof. Those cruel words sliced through me like a knife as my father-in-law Richard glared at me with contempt. Before I could defend myself, he splashed scalding coffee across my arm. Ouch! Stop. That's burning me. I cried out, jumping back in shock and pain. I couldn't comprehend what was happening. Who treats another human being this way? Fortunately, the coffee wasn't hot enough to cause serious burns, but it easily could have been much worse. I stood there, trembling, trying to process the hostility radiating from this man who was supposed to be family. What made his attack even more bewildering was how completely wrong he was. I wasn't the unemployed one in this household, it was my husband, Ethan. He'd lost his position at the marketing firm months ago, while I'd been silently keeping our finances afloat. Yet here I was, being demeaned and assaulted as if I were some kind of freeloader. Something inside me snapped in that moment. All the pent-up frustration, all the months of biting my tongue, it all came rushing to the surface. I don't deserve this treatment. I won't take this anymore. With newfound resolve hardening in my chest, I stood tall and looked Richard straight in the eyes. If that's really how you see me, then I'll leave. You win, I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. Richard's expression didn't show even a hint of remorse. If anything, he looked pleased. Finally, you're making yourself useful by getting out. Makes everything simpler for everyone, he replied with a dismissive wave. His callous response confirmed everything I needed to know. There was no misunderstanding here, no heat of the moment outburst he might later regret. This was who he truly was, and I wanted nothing more to do with this toxic environment. Without another word, I went to pack my belongings, my mind made up. What Richard didn't realize, what none of them knew, was that I wasn't some helpless dependent. Since Ethan's unemployment, I'd built a thriving career as a cryptocurrency consultant, pulling in roughly $50,000 monthly. I didn't need their roof over my head or their approval to survive. And if Richard ever came crawling back for financial assistance when he discovered the truth, I'd already decided he would find no sympathy from me. Some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. Ethan and I had been married for just over 3 years. We met during our final year at Northwestern, both of us studying business administration. After graduation, we landed positions at competing tech firms in Chicago. Despite our demanding schedules, we maintained a strong connection. 2 years into our relationship, Ethan proposed during a weekend trip to Lake Michigan. "Olivia, you're the missing piece that makes my life complete. Will you marry me?" he'd asked, down on one knee with the sunset painting the sky behind him. "There's nothing I want more," I'd answered, truly believing we were starting something beautiful and lasting. Looking back now, as I folded my clothes into a suitcase, I realized how naive I'd been. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from a situation that's slowly destroying you. Sometimes leaving is the only path to healing. When Ethan first proposed, my heart was overflowing with joy and anticipation. I envisioned our future together, building a home, supporting each other's dreams, maybe starting a family someday. I thought I understood what married life would be like. I couldn't have been more mistaken. Just weeks after our engagement, Ethan approached me with an unexpected request. "Liv," he began hesitantly one evening, "would you consider giving up your position at the firm and moving in with my dad and me at his place?" I was completely thrown. "What?" "I don't mind changing jobs eventually, but we just got engaged. Shouldn't we be looking for our own space?" "I get that," he said, rubbing the back of his neck nervously, "but I'm worried about Dad being on his own. He's not been the same since Mom passed." Ethan's mother had died from cancer when he was in high school, and he'd been his father's primary emotional support ever since. As an only child, he carried that responsibility heavily on his shoulders. Understanding his concern, though still harboring reservations, I reluctantly agreed. "All right, I'll move in with you and your dad." if it means that much to you. A month later, we relocated to Richard's spacious colonial-style house in the suburbs. Initially, Richard appeared pleased to have his son back home, greeting us with what seemed like genuine warmth. But the moment his eyes landed on me, his demeanor transformed. The smile vanished, replaced by a cold, calculating stare that made me instantly uncomfortable. Under his breath, he muttered something I couldn't quite catch, something that sounded suspiciously like, "She didn't need to tag along." I forced a smile and tried to ignore the knot forming in my stomach, but deep down, alarm bells were already ringing. Still, I made it through that first day without any major incidents. The next morning shattered any hope that things might work out. I was jolted awake by Richard pounding on our bedroom door. "Are you planning to sleep all day? Get up and prepare breakfast," he shouted. Disoriented, I squinted at the bedside clock. It was barely 5:30 a.m., still dark outside. Is he serious? I thought, struggling to clear the fog of sleep from my mind. "Why so early?" I asked, my voice still raspy from sleep. "Don't lie around acting entitled just because you don't contribute," he snapped back. Too shocked and groggy to argue, I dragged myself out of bed and headed to the kitchen. While I worked to prepare a full breakfast, Richard hovered nearby, criticizing my every move. "Can't you work any faster? What's taking so long?" he barked impatiently. The pressure made my hands shake, but I managed to finish breakfast in about 20 minutes. "Sorry for the wait," I said, trying to maintain some semblance of politeness. "About time. Can't you cook more efficiently?" he complained, examining the food with obvious disapproval. His harsh words stung, but I remained silent. This uncomfortable interaction was clearly just the beginning of what living with Richard would entail. As I picked at my food, anxiety gnawed at me. I'd given up my apartment, my independence, and now I was trapped in this hostile environment with a man who seemed determined to make me miserable. I wanted to defend myself against Richard's breakfast complaints, to point out that no one could possibly cook any faster, but instead I forced a smile and tried to let it go. My diplomatic approach didn't help. "What is this?" "The eggs are too salty," he exclaimed, glaring at me accusingly. "I don't think they're particularly salty," I replied cautiously. "Are you contradicting me? Are you suggesting there's something wrong with my taste buds? Are you trying to give me a heart attack with all this sodium?" he fired back, his voice rising with each accusation. I sat there, stunned and confused. Why was he twisting my words this way? Why was he treating me with such hostility? His behavior made absolutely no sense to me. Gathering my courage, I asked directly, "Richard, why are you being so harsh with me? What are you talking about?" "I'm not being harsh," he replied, feigning innocence. "Or are you trying to paint me as the villain here?" "No, that's not what I meant at all," I stammered, feeling cornered by his manipulative response. "Finish eating, then clean up the kitchen. After that, the laundry needs doing," he ordered dismissively. "There's no time for laziness in this house." From that day forward, Richard's treatment of me grew increasingly cruel. Every task I performed was met with criticism and contempt. When I cleaned the house, he'd run his finger along surfaces and declare, "You miss spots everywhere, can't you see the dust?" When I did laundry, he'd hold up perfectly clean clothes and claim, "This stain is still visible. Are you even trying?" After a month of this relentless psychological torment, I reached my breaking point. One night, while Ethan and I were alone in our room, I decided to confide in him. "Ethan, I need to talk to you about something important," I began carefully. "Your father has been constantly belittling me and saying hurtful things. It's becoming unbearable. Could you please talk to him about how he speaks to me?" I expected comfort, support, or at the very least acknowledgement of my pain. Instead, Ethan said nothing. His silence spoke volumes, cutting deeper than Richard's insults ever could. "Ethan, are you even listening?" I asked, my frustration mounting. That's when I noticed something troubling. He looked pale and uncomfortable, like someone carrying a secret too heavy to bear. What's wrong? Did something happen? I asked, my own problems momentarily forgotten. Ethan hesitated, then finally spoke in a quiet voice. I've been laid off from my job. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. You're joking, right? I asked, desperately hoping it wasn't true. No, he whispered. The company downsized due to budget cuts. A lot of people lost their positions. I'm officially unemployed starting tomorrow. I sat in stunned silence, my mind racing to process this new reality. Not only was I enduring daily abuse from Richard, but now our financial stability was in jeopardy too. How much more can I handle? I wondered, feeling the weight of our situation pressing down on me. After receiving notice of his impending job loss, Ethan had a month left of employment. During this time, I had been quietly using my finance background to establish myself in cryptocurrency consulting. The learning curve was steep, and I made my share of mistakes early on, but gradually my expertise grew. Eventually, I was generating around $50,000 monthly, more than enough to support us both. Despite this success, I kept it relatively low-key, focusing instead on emotionally supporting Ethan while trying to endure Richard's daily harassment. I told myself I needed to stay strong for Ethan's sake. He'd just lost his job, and I felt it was my responsibility to be his rock. As another month passed, Ethan officially became unemployed. Initially, he made some attempts to find new work, sending out resumes and making a few phone calls. However, as time progressed, his efforts dwindled. He started spending more time playing video games or watching TV, making flimsy excuses about the job market. Shouldn't you be more proactive about your job search? I suggested gently one afternoon, watching him start yet another gaming session. I am looking, he replied defensively. It's just hard to find the right fit with my qualifications. His lack of genuine effort frustrated me deeply, but I swallowed my concerns and continued supporting our household financially. Meanwhile, Richard's treatment worsened daily. His criticism became more vicious, and I found myself constantly exhausted, both physically and emotionally. I thought I had to endure this for Ethan's sake, I reflected during one particularly difficult day. But how much of myself am I willing to sacrifice? One morning, Ethan left the house earlier than usual. I hoped this meant he was finally taking his job search seriously. After he departed, I began my usual cleaning routine while Richard sat in the living room, sipping his morning coffee and watching my every move like a hawk. Make sure you don't miss anything this time, he barked from his armchair. And don't forget the corners. I tried to tune out his negativity and focus on my task. This seemed to infuriate him further. How dare you ignore me, you worthless gold digger, he exploded, his face contorting with rage. Unemployed parasites like you are a disgrace to this household. Before I could defend myself, Richard grabbed his cup of coffee and hurled the hot liquid at me. The scalding coffee splashed across my arm and chest. Ouch! That's hot. Stop it. I screamed, jumping back in pain and shock. That was the moment everything changed. Like a fog lifting, I suddenly saw with perfect clarity that I could no longer live in this toxic environment. Richard's behavior wasn't just unpleasant, it was abusive and potentially dangerous. Something had to change, and I realized I was the only one who could make that change happen. The pain from the hot coffee made me cry out instinctively. Fortunately, it wasn't boiling, so I wasn't seriously burned, but it could have resulted in a trip to the emergency room. Instead of showing concern, Richard seemed satisfied with my reaction. This is exactly what I've been saying all along, he smirked. If you're not contributing, you have no place in this house. His cruel words struck a nerve, but instead of cowering, I felt a strange calm wash over me. I was done arguing, done trying to prove my worth to someone who had already decided to hate me. Taking a deep breath, I said simply, "Fine. I'll leave." "Good," he replied, looking almost pleased. That makes everything simpler. The sooner the better. I didn't want to spend another second in that house. I packed my essentials as quickly as possible and left that same day, heading straight to my best friend Megan's apartment. She welcomed me with open arms, no questions asked. For days, I waited for some communication from Ethan. Surely he would call, text, something to check if I was okay? But my phone remained silent. Days turned into weeks with no word from the man who had promised to love and cherish me. As the silence stretched on, my feelings for him began to fade, replaced by a growing certainty that our marriage was over. If he truly cared, wouldn't he have reached out by now? I thought, wouldn't he at least want to know where I am? A month passed in this limbo, and I started seriously considering divorce. Ethan had shown through his silence that he didn't value our relationship enough to fight for it. Why should I remain tied to someone who couldn't even be bothered to check if I was safe? One early morning, Megan's doorbell rang unexpectedly. I checked the security camera and was shocked to see Ethan and Richard standing outside. After all this time, what could they possibly want? Yes? What do you need? I asked through the intercom, my heart pounding uncomfortably. Richard's voice came through, loud and demanding. I've forgiven you now, so come back home. I was dumbfounded. Forgiven me? For what exactly? His statement was so absurd, so disconnected from reality, that I almost laughed. Thank you for saying that, I replied, keeping my voice steady, but I don't believe I've done anything that requires forgiveness. I ended the call, thinking that would be the end of it. Instead, Richard began pounding on the door and shouting, "Don't you dare hang up on me. Let us in right now. You need to come back with us." Concerned that his outbursts might disturb Megan's neighbors, I reluctantly opened the door and invited them inside. Once seated in the living room, I asked directly, "Why are you here? What's going on?" Richard's behavior made no sense. He had practically celebrated my departure, and now he was insisting I return? Something didn't add up. You told me to leave, I reminded him firmly. I can't just come back now. Richard grew increasingly frustrated, accusing me of being childish and stubborn. He claimed that he had graciously forgiven me and was even willing to allow someone unemployed and uneducated, like me, to live in his house again. His condescension was the final straw. I'm not the unemployed one, I countered, unable to hold back any longer. Your son is the one without a job, and if I return, you'll just continue treating me horribly every single day. Ethan looked shocked when I exposed the truth, and Richard appeared genuinely confused. It became clear that Ethan had never told his father about losing his job. The revelation sparked a flurry of explanations and excuses from Ethan, who admitted he had been relying on my income to maintain their lifestyle. Richard was livid. Why didn't you tell me about this? He shouted at Ethan. What are we supposed to do now? Ethan tried to calm him down. It's okay for now. Olivia's income is enough for all of us. His casual admission that he expected me to continue supporting them both, after everything they had put me through, left me speechless. Richard called his son worthless for failing to secure new employment and berated him further. Meanwhile, I sat there, processing the realization that I had been financially supporting two people who had shown me nothing but contempt. When Richard suggested again that I return to live with them, I firmly refused. No, I'm not coming back, I stated unequivocally. The conversation escalated when I mentioned how Richard had thrown hot coffee at me. Ethan's face paled. He did what to you? He asked, clearly horrified. Yes, ask him yourself, I challenged. When confronted, Richard admitted it without hesitation. She ignored me, so that's why I did it, he explained, as if his reasoning justified assault. His casual confession ignited a heated argument between father and son. As their voices rose, I intervened. Take this fight back to your own house. You're in someone else's home and being disruptive. My words seemed to penetrate their anger, and their demeanor softened. They began pleading with me to reconsider. Ethan promised he would find employment, while Richard assured me he would treat me better. Their sudden change felt hollow and manipulative, easy promises made in desperation. "Your words mean nothing to me anymore," I told them honestly. "I know you'll just take advantage of me again if I come back." Their silence confirmed my suspicions. Without further discussion, I left the room to collect my thoughts. When I returned several minutes later, they were sitting exactly as I'd left them, heads bowed in uncomfortable silence. "How much longer do you plan to sit here without saying anything?" I asked, my patience wearing thin. Instead of answering, Ethan sighed deeply. His expression shifted to confusion when I handed him a document, divorce papers I had already completed and signed. "It's divorce paperwork," I explained matter-of-factly. "I've had enough. I can't remain married to someone who refuses to find work and couldn't even bother to contact me after I left." Ethan appeared stunned. "Wait, please, this is too sudden," he protested. His reaction irritated me. He seemed incapable of understanding that his actions or lack thereof had directly led to this outcome. He had abandoned me when I needed support and left me to handle everything alone. "My decision is final," I stated resolutely. "No matter what you say, I'm divorcing you." I turned to Richard with the same resolute expression. He was equally culpable for the breakdown of our marriage with his constant mistreatment. Eventually, Ethan signed the divorce papers, though not without a parting shot. "Don't come regretting this later." I felt nothing but relief as I replied, "The only one who might have regrets is you. I'll file these myself. I don't want any financial settlement, just leave me alone and go home." With that, our marriage officially ended. It might have seemed harsh to some, but it was necessary for me to escape the toxic environment created by both Richard's cruelty and Ethan's negligence. 3 weeks later, while relaxing at Megan's apartment and considering my next steps, I received a call from Richard. He sounded desperate. "The utilities have been shut off," he admitted. "Did you do something?" I calmly explained, "I stopped covering your household expenses. That's why." His tone immediately changed as he tried to appeal for my assistance, making it obvious that he was hoping I would rescue them financially, just as I had done before. He asked if I could help for just a couple of months, but even that seemed unreasonable considering we were no longer family and I had moved out. "No," I replied firmly. "Ask Ethan for help. He promised to get a job and support you, didn't he?" Richard couldn't understand my refusal and attempted to manipulate me with guilt, insisting I still had obligations as Ethan's ex-wife. I remained steadfast in my decision, ended the call, and blocked his number. I also blocked all forms of communication from my unreliable ex-husband and his toxic father. With these boundaries in place, life became considerably more peaceful. I focused on rebuilding my life and investing in my own happiness. Several months later, while on vacation in Colorado reviewing my investment portfolio, I received a message from Ethan using a different number. He apologized for everything and admitted he had depended on me excessively. He mentioned finding factory work recently and complained that his father was still treating him poorly, asking if I would consider reconciliation. After reading his message, I realized there was absolutely no possibility of us ever getting back together. I blocked his new number as well and continued enjoying my trip. About 5 months after finalizing my divorce, a colleague introduced me to Michael, a thoughtful, driven entrepreneur who treated me with genuine respect and appreciation. Though he was a few years older than me, we connected immediately. We weren't rushing toward marriage, but I cherished the authentic happiness we shared. I decided to focus on our promising present rather than dwelling on painful memories of my past. Sometimes, walking away from toxicity is the first step toward finding the life you truly deserve.